Chapter 6. Workers in Art. If what shone afar so grand, turn to nothing in thy hand, on again. The virtue lies in struggle, not the prize. R. M. Milnes. Excel, and you'll live. Joubert. Excellence in art, as in everything else, can only be achieved by dint of painstaking labor. There is nothing less accidental than the painting of a fine picture or the chiseling of a noble statue. Every skilled touch of the artist's brush or chisel, though guided by genius, is the product of unremitting study. Sir Joshua Reynolds was such a believer in the force of industry, that he held that artistic excellence, however expressed by genius, taste, or the gift of heaven, may be acquired. Writing to Barry he said, "Whoever is resolved to excel in painting, or indeed any other art, must bring all his mind to bear upon that one object from the moment that he rises till he goes to bed." And on another occasion he said, "Those who are resolved to excel must go to their work, willing or unwilling, morning, noon, and night. They will find it no play, but very hard labor." But although diligent application is no doubt absolutely necessary for the achievement of the highest distinction in art, it is equally true that without the inborn genius, no amount of mere industry, however well applied, will make an artist. The gift comes by nature, but is perfected by self-culture, which is of more avail than all the imparted education of the schools. Some of the greatest artists have had to force their way upward in the face of poverty and manifold obstructions. Illustrious instances will at once flash upon the reader's mind. Claude Lorraine, the pastrycook; Tintoretto, the dyer; the two Caravaggios, the one a color grinder, the other a mortar carrier at the Vatican; Salvator Rosa, the associate of bandits; Giotto, the peasant boy; Zingaro, the gypsy; Cavedoni, turned out of doors to beg by his father; Canova, the stone-cutter. These, and many other well-known artists, succeeded in achieving distinction by severe study and labor, under circumstances the most adverse. Nor have the most distinguished artists of our own country been born in a position of life more than ordinarily favorable to the culture of artistic genius. Gainsborough and Bacon were the sons of clothworkers. Barry was an Irish sailor boy, and Maclise a banker's apprentice at Cork. Opie and Romney, like Inigo Jones, were carpenters. West was the son of a small Quaker farmer in Pennsylvania. Northcote was a watchmaker, Jackson a tailor, and Eddy a printer. Reynolds, Wilson, and Wilkie were the sons of clergymen. Lawrence was the son of a publican, and Turner of a barber. Several of our painters, it is true, originally had some connection with art, though in a very humble way, such as Flaxman, whose father sold plaster casts; Bird, who ornamented tea trays; Martin, who was a coach painter; Wright and Gilpin, who were ship painters; Chantrey, who was a carver and gilder; and David Cox, Stanfield, and Roberts, who were scene painters. It was not by luck or accident that these men achieved distinction, but by sheer industry and hard work. Though some achieved wealth, yet this was rarely, if ever, the ruling motive. Indeed, no mere love of money could sustain the efforts of the artist in his early career of self-denial and application. The pleasure of the pursuit has always been its best reward. The wealth which followed but an accident. Many noble-minded artists have preferred following the bent of their genius, to chaffering with the public for terms. Spagnoletto verified in his life the beautiful fiction of Xenophon, and after he had acquired the means of luxury, preferred withdrawing himself from their influence, and voluntarily returned to poverty and labor. When Michelangelo was asked his opinion respecting a work which a painter had taken great pains to exhibit for profit, he said, "I think that he will be a poor fellow so long as he shows such an extreme eagerness to become rich." Like Sir Joshua Reynolds, Michelangelo was a great believer in the force of labor. And he held that there was nothing which the imagination conceived, that could not be embodied in marble, if the hand were made vigorously to obey the mind. He was himself one of the most indefatigable of workers. And he attributed his power of studying for a greater number of hours than most of his contemporaries, to his spare habits of living. A little bread and wine was all he required for the chief part of the day when employed at his work. And very frequently he rose in the middle of the night to resume his labors. On these occasions, it was his practice to fix the candle, by the light of which he chiseled, on the summit of a pasteboard cap which he wore. Sometimes he was too wearied to undress, and he slept in his clothes, ready to spring to his work so soon as refreshed by sleep. He had a favorite device of an old man in a go-cart, with an hourglass upon it bearing the inscription, Anchor Imparo. Still I am learning. Titian, also, was an indefatigable worker. His celebrated Pietro Martiri was 8 years in hand, and his Last Supper 7. In his letter to Charles V he said, I send your majesty the Last Supper after working at it almost daily for 7 years, dopo 7 anni lavorando vi quasi continuamente. Few think of the patient labor and long training involved in the greatest works of the artist. They seem easy and quickly accomplished, yet with how great difficulty has this ease been acquired. You charge me 50 sequins, said the Venetian nobleman to the sculptor, for a bust that cost you only 10 days' labor. You forget, said the artist, that I have been 30 years learning to make that bust in 10 days. Once when Domenichino was blamed for his slowness in finishing a picture which was bespoken, he made answer, I am continually painting it within myself. It was eminently characteristic of the industry of the late Sir Augustus Calcott, that he made not fewer than 40 separate sketches in the composition of his famous picture of Rochester. This constant repetition is one of the main conditions of success in art, as in life itself. No matter how generous nature has been in bestowing the gift of genius, the pursuit of art is nevertheless a long and continuous labor. Many artists have been precocious, but without diligence their precocity would have come to nothing. The anecdote related of West is well known. When only 7 years old, struck with the beauty of the sleeping infant of his eldest sister whilst watching by its cradle, he ran to seek some paper and forthwith drew its portrait in red and black ink. The little incident revealed the artist in him, and it was found impossible to draw him from his bent. West might have been a greater painter, had he not been injured by too early success. His fame, though great, was not purchased by study, trials, and difficulties, and it has not been enduring. Richard Wilson, when a mere child, indulged himself with tracing figures of men and animals on the walls of his father's house, with a burned stick. He first directed his attention to portrait painting. But when in Italy, calling one day at the house of Zuccarelli, and growing weary with waiting, he began painting the scene on which his friend's chamber window looked. When Zuccarelli arrived, he was so charmed with the picture, that he asked if Wilson had not studied landscape, to which he replied that he had not. Then, I advise you, said the other, to try. For you are sure of great success. Wilson adopted the advice, studied and worked hard, and became our first great English landscape painter. Sir Joshua Reynolds, when a boy, forgot his lessons, and took pleasure only in drawing, for which his father was accustomed to rebuke him. The boy was destined for the profession of physic, but his strong instinct for art could not be repressed, and he became a painter. Gainsborough went sketching, when a schoolboy, in the woods of Sudbury. And at 12 he was a confirmed artist. He was a keen observer and a hard worker, no picturesque feature of any scene he had once looked upon, escaping his diligent pencil. William Blake, a hosier's son, employed himself in drawing designs on the backs of his father's shop bills, and making sketches on the counter. Edward Bird, when a child only 3 or 4 years old, would mount a chair and draw figures on the walls, which he called French and English soldiers. A box of colors was purchased for him, and his father, desirous of turning his love of art to account, put him apprentice to a maker of tea trays. Out of this trade he gradually raised himself, by study and labor, to the rank of a royal academician.